Yo, what is up? It is your boys that are back with part 2 to What If Deku Had Paint Magic. Now in the last part, we had basically left off with how Deku ended up getting the magic, established that Bakugo is actually going to be gender bended in this series, so it's going to be Katsuki. That's what I'm going to be referring to him as. Or her, sorry. I messed that up too. But yeah, Bakugo's going to be a girl in this series, and I may slip up sometimes and be like Bakugo, but do keep in mind that what I mean is Katsuki, you know. I'm human too. But yeah, we basically established that at the end he'd basically met All Might. He put Katsuki onto him, and Katsuki actually ended up getting the quirk, all for one. And Deku in the last part had basically figured out that he's broken. He is absolutely broken. Deku can literally draw a prime All Might and just have him do his bidding. So how's that gonna work in the story? Let's go ahead and find out. So, boys, we basically left off with Deku and Katsuki basically getting ready to get into the entrance exam. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip to that, and yeah. So as things are going, Deku and Katsuki would basically be walking into the entrance exams. When they walk in there would be no Uraraka interaction, since I don't think Deku would fall. They would just basically get to their seats, and when things would be announced, Deku and Katsuki wouldn't really be talking. They'd just kind of be paying attention, so Ida wouldn't be a little bitch boy and start anything, since I don't really want to make Ida a bad guy in this version, or like an annoying guy, so I'm just gonna, do that just for plot convenience. So yeah, let's go ahead and say that Deku gets a perfect score. Yep, Deku gets a perfect score. Yeah, Deku gets a perfect score. He's a genius like that. No. Deku does not get a perfect score. He gets like a way better score, almost perfect. Katsuki gets basically the same score she got in canon. He got in canon, or it would be she technically. But yeah, she got the same score in canon, and yeah. Afterward, they would basically be sent to their little destroying robot things, and it would be basically the same as canon. Now, the only thing that would change, however, is Deku would straight away pull out his grimoire and just begin to fly around, and as soon as the gates were open, Deku would actually fly over it and would begin to open his book to release all of his favorite pro heroes. Now, as that is happening, all of the pros would actually begin to just start destroying robots, and all of the kids around would be like, "What? All Might?" They'd be like, "Best Genius? Aizawa?" They would just start seeing Endeavor, All Might, Kamui Woods, Edgeshot. They would start seeing Gran Torino. Oh my god, boys. They would just see a bunch of pro heroes and they'd see like 10 All Mights in his prime just destroying robots. So in about, let's say, 2 minutes, Deku had destroyed and cleared the entire battlefield, giving him 2,000 points, because that's what we like. He would get 2,000 points, and as soon as the big 0-pointer comes in, Deku would basically begin to try to show off. He would open his book to a giant burst of wind, and a burst of wind would just shoot, creating a hole through the middle of the giant 0-pointer. This is when it would be announced that the test was over, and all of the other kids would be like, "We didn't even get to destroy robots." This is when Deku would kind of rub the back of his head and be like, "Sorry guys," and all the other kids would like be angry, but then see that he has an army of pro heroes and would just be like, "Yeah bro, like you're good, like don't worry." So as for the other students, they would actually have to wait about another week for them to do their test. So they would have to go in another week, which means that the exam and the entrance of UA would actually have to get delayed because of him. Yeah. So that's basically how that goes. Afterwards, Katsuki calls him and she's like, "You couldn't hold back, could you?" And Deku's like, "I'm sorry, I guess I got a little carried away." This one, Katsuki would be like, "This makes sense." And basically they would go on and take the test. The rest of everybody else would go on and take the test. Now, after they did that, everybody who passed in the original canon would pass, and Deku would basically just report to class or the school the very next day. Now, on his way out, Mama Midori would actually look at him and say, "Hey Zuko, I actually made this for you. I was hoping that you would enjoy this little outfit that I made for you." Now, what is the outfit that she had basically created? She made him the Aqua Deer outfit. I think that's what it's called. The She would basically make him a sort of Black Clover member thing, but it wouldn't exactly have a symbol. It wouldn't have anything like that. It would just be plain, and it would be black. It wouldn't be black with yellow. It would be black with green, because that's just how Deku is. So yeah, he would basically have the Black Clover outfit, just no real symbol on it, and yeah, that's basically what his drip is gonna be when it comes to hero. So yeah, as for the people who basically requested me to do that, there you go. You know, you got what you wanted, and you know, I got what I wanted. So yeah. So Deku would basically pull up to class, and this is when you would see Katsuki just kind of sitting down with her feet on the desk, and Ida over there bugging her, being like, "Get your feet off of the desk." As soon as he sees this, Deku would walk up to Ida and be like, "Dude, leave her alone." And Ida would look at him and be like, "Oh, yeah, man, totally. Like, I'm sorry." And Deku would just be like, "Nah, man, it's cool. Like, just leave her alone, man. She wasn't doing anything." And Ida would kind of stay quiet because he saw what Deku's capable of. I mean, he can create pro heroes, so pretty sure Ida wouldn't want to fuck with that. So Ida basically sits down, and this one Uraraka would walk in. And since Deku didn't save Uraraka, she wouldn't have no reason to go up to Deku. So yeah, that changes a lot. Now when it comes to Aizawa getting up, Aizawa would get up and take one look at Deku before saying, I wonder what kind of hero he'll become. Since he took a very big interest in him, like seeing all the things that Deku was able to do. And yeah, this one Aizawa would basically proceed to tell them that they're going to be taking quirk assessment tests. Now, once they start taking the tests, no, they would go into the fitting rooms. Now, when they're in there, the rest of the class would basically look at Deku and say, "Whoa, man, how'd you get so fit?" And Deku would basically look at them and be like, "Oh, yeah, I did a little bit of physical training during, the 10 months, and I've been doing it a little bit of most of my life, honestly." Deku wouldn't be like rip, but he'd be around Bakugo, like in canon level. That's basically what he'd be like. And they would tell him, "Really? You work out, but your quirk, like, we saw what you did. Like, are you sure you even need it?" And Deku would basically look at him and say, "Can't always rely on my quirk, can I?" And this would basically make them think about themselves. Like, yeah, like, he's right. We can't always rely on our quirks. This one Deku would basically be like, yeah, and Mineta would be trying to poke in the girls' locker room. Now when Mineta's doing this, Deku would proceed to create a hole in the ground that Mineta's standing on, and he would sink down 10 feet under. This is when Deku would basically walk over to the hole and look down and say, "If you ever try to look in there again, I'm gonna put you 6 feet under permanently." And Mineta will be shitting himself. He's gonna be like, "Oh, I'm sorry." This is when Deku would proceed to cover up the hole, and Jiro would basically just be smiling, thinking, glad he's not a pervert. Now, this is when everybody would step outside. As soon as they go outside, Deku would basically be called up and say that he had the greatest scores in all of history, and that Deku is gonna be going first. This is when the rest of the class would basically be like, "Yeah, that's the kid who destroyed the entire robots." And Todoroki would look at him and be like, "Huh, interesting." Now, this is when Deku would basically proceed to be like, "Alright." He would summon his grimoire and would basically open the page to All Might. All Might would step out and he would be like, "Hey, All Might, throw this ball." All Might would proceed to, prime All Might, mind you, would proceed to just cock back his arm and just, the ball went flying, and I'm talking flying. He got 10,000 meters. Just because I'm just cool like that. But yeah, he got 10,000 meters. And sorry for any headphone users if I just ear raped you. Very, very sorry. And yeah, he ended up getting 10,000 meters. Now, Katsuki would actually come up, and she would get about 1,500 meters. Now, the rest of the class would basically get their normal scores. And as for the rest of the test, Deku would proceed to just body them. For the speed, he would just fly and get about half a second, because he's fast as fuck, boy. And when it comes to everything else, Deku would just basically use his quirk and destroy. He would have All Might do the rest of them for him, and Deku would basically just pass like flawlessly. All Might would be watching around the corner being like, "This kid is a monster." And Aizawa would basically just be thinking that they need to make him a hero, or things could end very, very, very badly for the Hero Society. Now, this is when Deku would basically just be smiling and showing all the signs of a hero. Todoroki, however, would be looking at him, being like, this guy's in my way. I need to beat him, and that's not gonna happen. That's just not gonna happen. The rest of the class would just be like, oh, his power is unfair, and they'd be like trying to ask Deku like, what's your drawback? And Deku would look at them and say, drawback? Be like, I mean, I guess you could say it's, if I'm not a good artist, I would have no use for this quirk. And they'd be like, so technically you have no drawback. And Deku would be like, not really, since I've been drawing for my entire life, so drawback not really a big issue for me. This is when the rest of the class would basically fall over anime style and be like, what do you mean? And Deku would basically just start laughing. This is when the test would end, and Deku would proceed to tell Katsuki that if she wants to walk home together. Now, as for Mineta wouldn't get expelled just because he adds a little bit of comedic effect. So I guess I'm just going to be keeping him in this one. And yeah, so Mineta is going to be kept, and this is when Deku and Katsuki would actually decide to walk home. Now, when they're going home, Deku would basically be walking her, and she would basically look at him and tell her that, she's pretty happy for where she and he have gone, and she would begin to thank him for, putting her onto All Might and, helping her train all these years, Now, this is when Deku, they'd be actually halfway there, and Deku would be like, hey, you wanna make this trip go by a little faster? And Katsuki would be like, huh? This is when Deku would proceed to make a cloud. Yes, sir. Homage to my, Shirakumo series. It'd be a pretty big cloud, and Deku would say, get on. And this is when the music would come on. A whole new world. No, for real though. That would happen, and this is when Deku and Katsuki would basically be taken home. He would drop her off, and right after that happens, Deku would basically just be like, I'll be seeing you around. And this is when Deku would basically go home, eat, do the normal things that he would do, and the next day would come around. Now, let's just say that Deku basically ends up getting to class with Katsuki. He actually goes to pick her up on the cloud again, and this is when they're riding, Katsuki would be asking him, and she would say, hey, Deku, what do you think of me? And this is when Deku would be like, what do you mean, what do I think of you? Like, he's like, he would basically look at her and be like, you know what I think of you, Katsuki? And she would basically look at him and be like, yeah, but what do you really think of me? And Deku would kind of blush red, and she'd be blushing red and hiding her face, and Deku would basically speed the cloud up, and they would arrive to class, so Deku would kind of dodge the question. Now, Katsuki, she'd be like, I guess, whatever. And this is when they would basically go through the day as normal. Now, All Might would actually pop up around the corner and do his usual, I am here, to the kids, which Deku was like, yo, All Might, what's up? The rest of the class would basically look at Deku and be like, what, dude, it's All Might. Like, don't address him so casually. And All Might would be like, no, kids, it's all right. And some of them would begin to say, well, he can make his own All Might, so I could see why he's not that impressed. And I'm pretty sure his is stronger than this All Might. And All Might hearing this would kind of get a little sad, admittedly, and be like, oh, so they think he's stronger than me. He'd be like, they're right, but damn. And this is when Deku would basically begin to laugh and be like, no, All Might is still stronger. And the rest of the class would be like, really? This is when Deku would basically just wink at All Might and say, yeah, of course. All Might would basically be like, thank you, kid. And this is when he would announce that they're going to be getting into their hero costumes. Now, Deku, as I said before, would get into his little Black Clover looking, outfit thing. Katsuki her costume would look way better than in canon. Her costume would basically have the same color scheme, be a little more revealing, and her gauntlets wouldn't be as bulky as before. She also wouldn't have the big little the spiky hair thing. She'd basically look like her mother, so she would be pretty, pretty decent looking, she would look good around the edges, and Deku seeing this would be like, whoa, like, hey, Katsuki, like, you look really good in your hero outfit. This one, she would look at Deku and be like, yo, Deku, like, that outfit actually really suits you. You look great in it. This is when Deku would basically look at her and say, yeah, I kind of figured I would go for a little bit of a wizard look. And she would say, yeah, that look actually really suits you. You look like a magician. Deku would say, yeah, I have paint magic after all. And she would say, oh, true. Now, this is when they would be getting into groups, and it would basically be Deku, Katsuki versus Todoroki and Ida. Now, as for that, do I really have to tell you guys what happened? Todoroki and Ida, what is Todoroki going to do? Deku would proceed to create pro heroes. He would create Midnight, have her walk in and release her gas everywhere, so Todoroki and Ida would pass out. And he would make an eraser head to just walk in there and erase both of their quirks. Touch the bomb and it would be GG's. Now Katsuki, after he did that, would be like, damn it, Deku, like, I actually wanted to do this. I wanted to test my abilities. And Deku would say, oh, my bad. Like, how about we spar later? I'll make it up to you. And she would basically look at him and say, oh, really? He'd say, yeah, I got you. Now, this is when the rest of the thing would go to canon, and everybody would be like, wow, like, Deku is too strong. Like, this is unfair. And everything else would basically end. All of the other things would go as to canon, and Deku and Katsuki would actually decide to go to the beach after school. Now, when they arrived, Deku would ask her if she wants to fight him, like, hand to hand. And this is when Katsuki would smile and say, really? You really want to do that? You really want to get beaten that badly? And Deku would proceed to say, you know, something tells me that you're not going to win this time. And Katsuki would be like, your death wish. And this is when Deku would basically get into a fighting stance. And she would notice that he's in a pretty good fighting stance. And Deku would proceed to, you know, almost keep up with Katsuki. He'd be doing good. He'd be dodging some attacks. He'd be using his enhanced speed with the Grimoire to dodge a lot of things. And this is when she would point out to Deku that when it comes to him using his actual quirk, Deku is practically unbeatable. Like, nobody's going to beat him. But when it comes to fighting without your quirk, Deku, for some reason, you're weak. And this is when Deku would say that, like, he would say, I don't think I'm weak. Wait, she would not say he's weak, but she would say that he needs more work when it comes to physical combat. Now, this is when Deku would basically agree with her and then began to tell her that he's actually never been in a scenario without his quirk. And she's like, what about Eraserhead? He could erase your quirk. And this is when Deku would basically create an Eraserhead and say, you really think he could? And she would be like, yeah. This one Deku would tell Eraserhead to use his eraser quirk, and Deku would still be flying in the air. She would be like, what? You can't get your quirk erased? And Deku would say, no, it's weird. I've never been able to have my quirk canceled or nullified. And this one Katsuki would be like, okay, this guy is God. Like, he's not going to be beaten ever. And Deku would begin to kind of laugh to himself and be like, yeah. And this one Katsuki would be like, no fair. I should have had that quirk. And Deku would say, come again? He'd say, oh, nothing. And Deku would say, Now, this is when Deku would proceed to, you know, fly her home. And, you know, yeah, he would proceed to fly her home. And this is when Deku, you know what, should I give you guys the USJ attack? Or I'm going to give you guys the USJ attack. I'm feeling nice. So this is when Deku would basically drop her off home and say, so you want to train again tomorrow? And Katsuki would say, of course. Now, this is when Deku would basically proceed to just go home, and the very next day would arrive. They would be told that they're going to be going to the USJ, and basically that would go to canon with them getting on the bus up until the point where Tsuyu begins to talk and say, hey, Midoriya, your quirk's like All Might. This is when Deku would basically look at her and say, my quirk isn't like, wait, no, I'm saying that she won't say that. So Deku would basically just be sitting with Katsuki talking to her. The rest of the class would be talking about who has the strongest quirk, and everybody would simultaneously say that the strongest in the class would be Deku, and next would be Katsuki, and then they would proceed to say that Todoroki's probably next with his little ice quirk and fire quirk. No, they would say ice quirk. And this is when Deku would basically be like, yeah, I am the strongest. Now they would arrive. 13 would give her little speech, and this is when the villains would arrive. As soon as they arrived, Deku would be like, okay, no, none of this. And before Kurogiri could even teleport anybody out of there, Deku would release the pro heroes that he has drawn, and he would create 20 All Mights. Now this is when they would begin to destroy. I'm talking Madara versus the Shinobi Alliance type destroy the villains and All Mights. The All Mights would begin to body everybody. As soon as they see the Shigaraki would be like, what the fuck? This is not fair. And Kurogiri would immediately go to grab Shigaraki to get the hell out of there. This is when Shigaraki and Kurogir would escape immediately, and when they arrived back to their lair, Shigaraki would tell All For One that there was 20 All Mights in there, and that there was like all of the other pro heroes, all of the top 10s, and All For One would just be like, "What? That's impossible! Like, there can't be 10 All Mights. One of them must have had like a mirage quirk or like an illusion." This one, Shigaraki would proceed to look at him and say it was not an illusion. Our forces were taken down in less than 10 seconds. And Shigaraki would say that he needs stronger no moves and that he needs them now. And All For One would begin to tell him that he could try again next time, and would begin to basically wonder about what Shigaraki said. He would begin to think that if that was really the case, then his plans can be destroyed by whoever that is that has that power. Now that would basically conclude the USJ attack. And I know that the USJ attack was very, very short, but you're Shigaraki, you have one normal and let's say 200 randoms versus all of the pro heroes, 20 All Mights, I think it was 18 pro kids, the real Aizawa, as well as 13. Do you really want to try that, or should I just skip that because there's nothing they can do about it? So yeah, that's really where I'm gonna be ending this part off, boys. Next part, I'm definitely gonna get into the sports festival as well as the Stain arc, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this part. Make sure to leave a like. I'm gonna need 23 likes for the next part. And yeah, with that being said, Zether out. Peace.